Yep. All right.
Okay, we ready?
Yep.
Okay, so good evening. We want to welcome you to our first statewide meeting this year for Third Act, North Carolina. It's good to see everybody calling in from all over the state. My name is Marcia Fouch, and our plan tonight is to talk a little about Third Act for those who are new, introduce you to our coordinating committee and our Third Act North Carolina work, hear from our featured speaker on AI and data centers, and then have some breakout groups. So we're asking that people please stay on mute unless they're talking. We also have, there's that closed caption is an option at the bottom. If you want that accommodation, it says CC at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring the chat, and we will respond to you. It might not be immediately, but we will respond. We also have a timekeeper, so if we start to go over, she's going to give us a 30-second warning. Um, please don't take offense. We just are trying to be respectful of everyone's time. So for those of you who are new to Third Act, we're a national organization started by Bill McKibben, a longtime climate activist. Our membership is made up of people over 60 years of age who we're in our Third Act, and we focus on protecting our democracy and climate. When Bill turned 60, he realized that he still had a lot of work to do, and there were others like him who were retired, had the time and desire to change the world. He also noted that seniors have a lot of superpowers, and that we'll talk about those later. And if we could harness all this, we could be a powerful force for good in the world. Third Act has over 70,000 people in our national group, which we call Third Act Central. Central has a few paid staff members, but most of us are volunteers. And Third Act has statewide working groups and affinity groups like educators, faith, creatives, and we work together and help each other. So we're what Third Act calls the working group for North Carolina. We also have a couple of local groups that are part of Third Act North Carolina in the Triad area and western part of the state. Third Act North Carolina launched about 3 years ago, and our working group is made up of people from around the state. We have two new co-facilitators that we'd like to welcome. And we want to thank Cheryl Oringo for being our facilitator and doing the job of two people for the last few months. We will have each member of the coordinating committee introduce themselves, tell where they're from, and briefly what they like about Third Act. So we're going to start with one of our new co-facilitators, Nancy.
Thanks a lot, Marcia. My name is Nancy LaPlaca, and I am a part-time staff consultant with Third Act National and also a new co-facilitator. And I'm really happy to be here. I've been doing utility regulatory work for about 20 years, so deeply embedded in the whole solar race, the race to get clean energy and to get rid of fossil fuels. And what I love about Third Act is I've met so many wonderful people all over the country and that we care. And here we are. I just turned 70, and us elders, we still have a lot left and a lot to give. And that's what we're doing. And it's just wonderful to
Okay,
be
thanks,
part of this.
Nancy. Sorry.
Thanks.
We'll have Karen Willie, our other new co-facilitator.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I live in Asheville, up in the mountains. And I love Third Act. I've been a third actor for just about 3 years. I joined the statewide group 2.5 years ago. I am the communications organizer for North Carolina, which means I used to do the newsletter. Thank you, Maria, for taking that on. And I just love connecting with folks, getting our message out, and getting more folks into the fold to spread the word. Climate change is
Okay.
real, and we got it.
Okay, let's go to our past facilitator, Karen Oringo.
Hi, I am
I mean,
Cheryl.
Cheryl, sorry.
So I thought I'd say it better.
Yeah, we got so many Karens, sorry.
I know, I know. So I'm Cheryl Orengo. I live in Asheville also, and I've been in Third Act about since the very beginning. I remember Jane Fonda being on the meeting that I attended. Um, And I really wanted to join Third Act because of climate. I have grandchildren. I'm very, very concerned about them. And I also am very involved in the democracy. I was involved in as an organizer in politics for years, about 20 years or so. So I really enjoy it. I enjoy all the people, and we love for you to join and join us and to the next person.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Rosemarie.
Hi, everybody. I am Rosemary Vardell, and I'm in Greensboro. And I joined Third Act from the very beginning, so one of the originals. And I have always been really concerned and interested in what's going on in the environment, but I just never had the time or the resources to really pursue that. So I'm here because now I have a chance to do that, and because Third Act is a learning organization. We are constantly having opportunities to know more, have more things to do, and learn about. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Rosemary. Elizabeth.
Hello, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Chartrand. I also live in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I was recruited by Rosemary to help with keeping a list of our membership. And I love Third Act because of all the energy of the people that I meet and their expertise and savvy. I'll pass it on to the next.
Okay, Karen Bearden.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Karen Bearden, and I live in Raleigh. And I love Third Act, well, because I was with 350.org since the very beginning when Bill McKibben and 7 Middlebury College students started it, and I'm the 350 Triangle Coordinator. So, of course, when Bill, when he first started his crucial years, and then he eventually announced, when he originally announced Third Act, I joined up, of course, and then got involved with this North Carolina committee right away. So, yay.
Thanks, Karen. Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria Portone. I live in Belmont, which is near Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I retired, I was looking for what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I happened into Third Act, which focused on climate and democracy, my two big issues. And I said, what can I give? But what I didn't realize is what I was going to get. And what I've got is a community of very interesting, very engaged, intelligent people working on these problems with me. And it's a joy to be here.
Thanks, Maria. Well, I think that's everybody but me. I'm Marcia Fouch. I'm in Greensboro here. I'm one of the people that helped start the North Carolina Working Group, and I'm a fan of Bill McKibben. So basically, anything Bill McKibben starts or is involved with, I'm going to be there. And what I really appreciate is that there's always someone who can help me at Third Act, and they're willing to take the time for me. That's usually tech stuff, but there are also people at Third Act Central I can reach out to help for training for just about everything. And so I also want to add that we are presently looking for more people to join the coordinating committee. And we have, although we are all women, we have had men on the coordinating committee, and we welcome everyone to join us. So another thing that is really special about Third Act is that our foundation is relational organizing. And relational organizing is a strategy that leverages personal relationships, friends, family, and colleagues to drive action. And because we do relational organizing, we have working principles to guide our interactions. Are you, okay, thank you. So, be kind, be inclusive, boost others, be humble, take care, back up the youth, be generous, but not to a fault, be accountable, be creative, and we're in this together. Please note that one of our important working principles is back up the youth. So one of the things Bill McKibben says is that young people are doing their job by raising awareness, but it's unfair and impractical to leave the climate fight solely to them. And older people should feel a responsibility to ensure that we do not leave a shabbier world for young people. So while our Third Act membership is made up of people over 60, we work with a lot of groups that have younger people. We work in coalition with other groups who focus on climate and democracy, no matter what age. And younger people are always invited to participate in our events. And we always try to show up if they ask for our support. So we're really moving along here. So what do we do at Third Act North Carolina? We have 3 campaigns, and what we mean by campaigns are the areas where we focus our work. We've identified these 3 campaign areas this year in North Carolina, and they are Simplify Solar, Safeguarding Our Democracy, and AI and Data Centers. Tonight, we're going to take a little time to explain the first 2 campaigns before we have our featured speaker, Rania, who will talk about data centers and AI. So I'm going to pass to Nancy now to talk about our first campaign, Simplify Solar.
Thanks a lot, Marcia. Yeah, Simplify Solar. We have a couple different campaigns with solar. Solar is the cheapest electricity on Earth, but a lot of people don't really realize that. Cheapest electricity in the United States. So the projects that we have going are to streamline permitting for residential solar. For example, Australia, it costs a third as much as it does in the United States because permitting is so easy. So we want to drive down the cost. Our other solar program we're working on is balcony solar. You might have heard of that, also called plug-in PV. There's 4 million balcony solar systems in Germany. So they're happening all over the world, and we're a part of that. And we're working in North Carolina to work on a bill next year. And Third Act is doing this all around the country. So basically, we want to promote solar. Bill wrote a book called Here Comes the Sun, and he writes frequently about solar. And really, there's a lot to love about solar. And we do a lot of solar education, and we help people in different states figure out how to promote solar. And let me pass it on now to Rosemary.
Hi again. So the area that I want to talk about is our democracy work. In this campaign, we we work to protect the right to vote, get out the vote, and register people to vote. Many in our generation fought for the protection of voting rights, but sadly, here we are again, having to fight for and against the efforts that are there to undermine our elections. We actually vote more than any other group. People over 60 were about 50% more likely to cast a ballot than those ages 18 to 29. So we can use our history and our experiences to encourage and support younger people in voting. This is an area of our work where we really emphasize working together. We support the work of other groups with similar goals and engage in things like postcarding, texting, making phone calls, reminding people to vote. Some of the kind of groups we work with are the Black and Brown Women's Voting Initiative, Forward Justice, which is a group that supports people who have served time in prison but are out and ready to engage in voting. Another group is You Can Vote. So they're working in the schools to prepare our high school students to be ready when they graduate to vote. We also push elected officials to be responsive to issues that impact our climate, including the impacts of fossil fuels on people, especially low-income communities. We are often seen in front of the city council and our county commissioners pressing for them to do resolutions that say that they will basically deal with the climate issue by dedicating themselves to using solar. So you might ask, what about supporting candidates? And yes, we do. We did this in the 2024 election. We certainly need to do everything we can to elect people who will fight for our planet and people with saving legislation and stop spending our money on wars, ballrooms, and other egregious endeavors. We need men and women who will take the oars and paddles of our boats and go with us as we go down the river. Our North Carolina Third Act group has developed a rigorous process for selecting candidates that we will actively support in an election. This includes reviewing their history of voting on climate issues, finding out their position on specific issues such as data centers. We also interview the candidates if that's at all possible. And we also invite our members to make suggestions that you have about candidates that we should support, and then join us in the vetting process. This part of our work is like others, numbers really matter. So we need many people to jump in in this work and help us prepare for the elections that are coming up. Third Act is a nonprofit organization, and so we can support candidates and work on their behalf. But what we cannot do is spend any money on candidates. And so we have some political action committees, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. But so Third Act is powering a political action committee called Gray PAC. That's appropriate name. And so Karen will put that link in the chat. So people who want to contribute money to the process, please do that. And nothing is too small. We are really appreciating anything people can do and would like to do. So it takes a lot of numbers, and we really want to get to know you, engage in this kind of work with you. So you can identify democracy as one of your interests on the survey that will come up at the end of the meeting or that you'll get in the mail. Hope to see you.
Okay, let's pass it to Karen Bearden
To introduce our awesome speaker. Yay! I have the honor to introduce Dr. Rania Masri. And Rania, I was like, this is my fourth time I'm introducing you, and I'll be doing it again next month too when you speak for our People versus Fossil Fuel group. So yay. So Rania facilitates our North Carolina Data Center Network group that's been meeting twice a month on the first and third Fridays since November, and we had an in-person meeting in Greensboro in March. So that's always interesting phone calls. She joined the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network in June 2022 as co-director and director of organizing and policy. She got her PhD from NC State in 2000 and her master's in environmental management from Duke University in 1995. Since 1990, she's organized for justice and against systems of oppression and wars through protests, teach-ins, and conferences, political organizing, public speaking training, and writings, research, and media work. She taught holistic environmental sciences, including environmental justice, at the university level for nearly 2 decades. She served as an expert in the Court of Conscience, where she presented testimony on the environmental impact of the 2006 Israel war on Lebanon, and as a juror in the 2025 Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal. She recognizes the intersectionality of struggles and the need to stand in solidarity, not in charity, in awe of wonder, language, and beautiful socialist nature of trees in a forest. She dreams of a world in which we all strive to be mother trees. In honor of the land and the resistance fighters, she asks, what can we achieve today for tomorrow's world? And she is from the artificially divided land of Greater Syria. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Karen. And I promise to always be telling you something that you didn't hear in a previous presentation. How do I make this neat for Karen? Truly, thank you all so much for this invitation. And I love to be in a space where we've all done organizing before Facebook. We know what it means to organize off the internet. And I was telling my mom, in my perfect world, we would only have internet for 8 hours a day so that we force ourselves to go back in relation with each other and step out of, this kind of talking to a computer. But nevertheless, I'm grateful that the internet is working so that I'm here to talk with you. And again, very grateful for this invitation. So, data centers. They are an extractive industry in the full sense of the word. So early last year, North Carolina Environmental Justice Network, we decided to study these monsters and to listen to communities and to figure out what's happening here. And we studied what goes into a data center and what comes out of a data center and what all is happening. So what goes into a data center? What are the threats of the construction of the data center and how a data center is powered? So the most famous opposition to data centers is that they increase fossil fuel expansion, right? They need a lot of energy. So get this in terms of numbers. From 2000 to 2025, electricity demand in our great state of North Carolina increased 7%, which is considered, a normal increase given the population. So it increased 7% over 25 years. And then from 2025 to 2040, so that's 15 years, not even 25 years, projected electricity demand in North Carolina is between 16 to 60%. So for 25 years, electricity demand increased 7% in North Carolina. And for the next 15 years, it could increase as much as 60%. 80% of that demand is projected to go to hyperscale data centers. So let's just stop for a second here. We have Duke Energy, our private monopoly, projecting data center growth so that Duke Energy can get more money from the state and from utility consumers like us to build out the infrastructure for data centers, regardless whether data centers come or not. As recently revealed by Lisa Sorg in an article she published yesterday.
Pick the one that's not weird looking.
So yesterday, Lisa Sorg's article came.
Whoops, Rania.
Okay, let me repeat that again. I got muted. So yesterday, Lisa Sorg in her article said, and I quote, Duke Energy has received tax breaks for 3 data centers that it owns. Because in North Carolina, you get tax incentives for a data center. So Duke Energy here has received sales and usage tax exemptions for building 3 data centers, while at the same time it is proposing an 18% rate hike on its North Carolina customers and reporting a $4.9 billion gross profits in the same year. So on one level, it gets tax incentives from building the data centers. On another level, it increases utilities and gets more profit. And all the while, it's not even disclosing what the wattage is for those 3 data centers that we are paying for. So that is just regarding fossil fuel expansion. That's pretty clear. And then we have another statement that was made in April of 2024 by a billionaire developer who's trying to have data centers in Lee County. And he says, and I quote, the anemic demand for natural gas, because natural gas, by the way, just as an asterisk, is the predominant source of electricity in North Carolina. And he's saying the anemic demand for natural gas is linked to a near absence of new electric power demand. There is a nearly universal consensus that the demand for fossil fuels will decrease over the next decade. Therefore, we need to be pushing for data centers. He is pushing for a data center in order to frack for methane to build up the demand. So here we have big oil and Duke Energy and others building a demand for data center development in order to frack more, postpone the retirement of coal, build more oil pipelines, all of this, so they can say, look, we need this for data centers. So we have this severe threat happening with regards to the relationship between energy and data centers. And then there's some groups who I will name if y'all push me to name them, who are saying our only problem with data centers is that they're not powered by clean energy. So they don't mind that even if, so let's say we've got this circle right now of electricity production. So even if this circle of electricity demand gets to be this much, and half of that goes to clean energy, which still would mean there's more, fossil fuel usage, those big greens don't mind at all. But here's the thing. We cannot have a livable planet with hyperscale data centers, regardless of the energy source. Even if they were all powered by solar power and wind power, we do not have enough water. We do not have enough water to power, to be used for these data centers because they need the water to cool their energy. Get these numbers. The main source of water consumption by these data centers is in the training of their large language models. So how much water are we talking about? In 97 days, just 97 days, 22 million liters of water was used to train one large language model for Facebook, for Meta. 22 million liters of water consumed in 97 days. I don't know what that is. So phrasing it in another way, if all the people of London consumed water for 900 years, they would consume 22 million liters. So we are talking about large language modeling consuming in 97 days what it would take all the people in London 900 years to consume. Now, bring that to North Carolina. North Carolina people in the States might not think of North Carolina as water stressed, but we know better. 97 of the 100 counties in North Carolina are in a drought. The city of Raleigh is in a drought right now. Okay, so 97 of our 100 counties are in a drought. Edgecombe County, which is one of the places that a massive data center is being planned, that developer saying they will only is their words, only claim 500,000 gallons a day, which is a false claim because the number is closer to 5 million gallons of water a day in an area that cannot afford that. So we have energy and fossil fuel expansion. We have massive water consumption, massive. And keep in mind that data center developers themselves are not telling us how much water their data center will consume. So much so that in Aurora, Colorado, they passed a regulation that simply said, okay, you're a large water user. Tell us how much water you are consuming and how you plan to replace that. The mere fact that data center developers had to say how much water they're consuming was reason enough for them not to go to Aurora, Colorado. Okay, so we've got this issue of energy and water consumption. And then there's the issue of water contamination, because there could very likely be an exposure of bacteria with the water, and there could very likely be PFAS pollution directly and indirectly, because we know that some of these data centers use PFAS in the cooling of their computers. We don't know how many, we don't know what chemicals are used, but we know that some of these data centers use PFAS. There also is a health concern regarding air quality and regarding the diminishment of air quality with these data centers. These are conservative statements saying air pollution from data centers alone in the next 5 years in the United States, in the next 4 years in the United States, could cause an additional 600,000 asthma cases, leading to an estimated 1,300 deaths annually. That means they could cost up to, because if we just care about the number and not the people, $21.5 billion annually in healthcare cost. It's not just asthma, it's also lung cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and premature deaths. And who will bear the brunt of that? Disadvantaged communities. These are the communities that already are at the highest risk. So these are serious numbers. So we're dealing with energy, we're dealing with water, we're dealing with health concerns from air pollution. We're also dealing with health concerns from noise. because typically these data centers contribute 90 decibels of noise 24/7. That is a very high number that very likely can cause mental and physical anguish. Even if that number goes down to 60 decibels, if that 60 decibels is all the time, which is 60 decibels is considered the sound of a conversation, but that is 24/7, that can still cause mental and physical anguish, particularly for the young and the elderly. So energy, water, health concerns, and noise. And then we're talking about land transformation. They are coming into rural communities across the country, but predominantly in the Southeast, from Virginia down to Texas, predominantly to consume large areas of land. These are land pieces that could be used for public housing, that could be used for regenerative agriculture, that could be used for small businesses. And these land transformations are also causing housing costs to skyrocket. They are also causing massive electronic waste, and they are also stealing alternatives in these counties and in these cities across the South. And all the while that they're doing that, they're consuming a great deal of money. There are 36 states in the United States that allow sales and usage tax exemptions for data centers. Now, sales and usage taxes, that is the biggest bucket from which public schools are financed. And North Carolina, we are #1 in the country in the lowest teacher salaries. That's not a good thing to be proud of. We are also one of 14 states of those 36 that does not even know how much revenue we are losing to data center tax abatement. We do know that we as a state are more than $800 million in deficit due to a loss in income tax. We do know that we don't have a budget yet at North Carolina, and we don't know how much money we are giving away to sales and usage tax exemptions to data centers. The range of that, of the idea of the loss, is between $450 million a year in North Carolina up to $1.5 billion a year. That's a pretty big range. We know that other states like Georgia, Virginia, and Texas each lose more than $1 billion a year in sales and usage tax exemptions. And again, let's think back to our public schools and how much they are losing. Data centers and artificial intelligence truly are the greatest public relations campaign I have known. They present themselves as inevitable. They present themselves as progress, to such an extent that a Google executive told us in North Carolina, he was the keynote speaker at the Rural Center Summit, which was deeply problematic. He said, they're going to come to rural communities because of energy and land. They're going to take our water. They're going to create noise. They're not going to give us jobs. These are his words. And we may, depending on the negotiation, get some taxes from them. His words. And he should know because the Google data center in Lenoir in North Carolina paid only $5 million in county taxes over 10 years, but received $73 million back in tax rebates. They got back 14 times what they gave the county. But here he was telling us, well, they're going to come anyway. They're inevitable, so you might as well try to make the most of it. So that is all the harm that goes into a data center. But the harm doesn't stop there because what comes out of the data center is generative artificial intelligence. Generative artificial intelligence is different from traditional artificial intelligence that's been around since the 1950s. And if you want, ask me in the Q&A, what is the relationship between eugenics and artificial intelligence? It's a horrifying and fascinating relationship. So what comes out of these industries, out of these warehouses, out of this marriage between big oil and big tech is generative AI. Generative AI, what does it do? It has already caused a loss of jobs, and it is predicted, according to McKinsey report. These are McKinsey's are conservative consultants. They're not socialists, they're not liberal. These are conservative folks. Their report predicts that by 2030, again in 4 years, AI could affect 15% of the global workforce and could displace 400 million workers in the next 4 years. Okay, so we are talking about the consumption of jobs, not the creation of jobs. In the United States, they will disproportionately impact Black and brown workers through displacement, not transition. So here, they're going to take away jobs, which is their plan, but they give us nudification apps. So that's exciting, right? We can now, put an app and make people nude. That's the least of it. We have seen in Gaza and Palestine an AI-powered genocide, the mass-scale annihilation of a people conducted in Gaza by the US and Israel with the help of AI algorithmic tools, Gospel, Lavender, and Where is Daddy? We have also seen it being used in the US-Israeli war on Iran. So here we're talking about a tool that is used to make killing machines more efficient. These are their language. In other words, to kill more people at a higher rate, all while taking away your jobs, all while increasing surveillance. And it's more. Take Palantir, which is one company that was actually funded by the CIA, which is a software powering intelligence agencies, health insurance companies, private hospitals, and of course the Department of War, consolidating all our data to build algorithmic predictive models to monopolize and weaponize surveillance. They are already being used to surveil and empower ICE. The ACLU talked about 4 systems built and operated by Palantir. Elite, this is one name of their system called Elite, that identifies and maps targets for deportation, i.e. individuals. It identifies and maps them for deportation. There's another database called Investigative Case Management that aggregates personal information across agencies, again, to target and surveil and kidnap people. They have another tool that enhances tracking, prioritization, and logistics of deportation. And they also use AI to analyze and translate so-called public tips. In other words, Palantir is the backbone of the deportation system. And just a few days ago, as if it doesn't stop with surveillance, just a few days ago, the US Department of Agriculture gave Palantir a $300 million no-bid contract to consolidate every single farmer's records in the United States into one digital file. No competitive bidding, one company chosen. The system will merge farm payments, acreage data, and program access into one single platform called One Farmer, One File. The USDA says it's going to cut red tape, but it puts one private tech company at the center of how every single American farmer can access federal support. And when one company controls the system, it shapes who gets seen, who gets processed, and who gets paid. And this happened one day after American Oversight, which is a watchdog organization, sued 5 agencies over Palantir surveillance systems. So this is big. We also know that generative artificial intelligence threatens to interfere with democratic representation, it undermines democratic accountability, and it corrodes social and political trust. But I'm not just talking about harms internationally, and I'm not just talking about future harms domestically. Already today, in the United States, 92 million low-income people in the United States have some basic aspect of their lives decided by artificial intelligence. Government officials, business leaders, and other people in positions of power regularly use AI and related technologies to cut Medicaid and other public benefits, deny housing, employment, or credit, take kids from their parents, intensify domestic violence and sexual abuse or harassment, label and mistreat middle and high school kids as likely dropouts or criminals, and falsely accuse Black and brown people of crimes, all at scales and speeds impossible with analog. So we're dealing with 73 million people through Medicaid who are exposed to AI-related decision-making, 16.5 million people through Medicare who are exposed to AI-related decision-making, 30.6 million people that are all low income through private health insurance that are also getting decisions made about their lives by AI, 42 million low-income people on SNAP who are either wrongly disqualified from the program or falsely accused of wrongdoing, 13.8 million people on Social Security disability benefits, including 10.6 million low-income people also are exposed to AI-related decision-making. 1.1 million low-income people on unemployment insurance are exposed to AI-related decision-making. 16.3 million low-income households, or 39.8 million low-income people, are exposed to AI-related decision-making through housing. 32.4 million low-wage workers are exposed to AI in the context of their work. 13.25 million low-income children are exposed to AI-related decision-making through the school district's use of AI to determine if the child will drop out or engage in criminal activity, and thereby have increased surveillance on them. And it goes on and on and on. We are already at that stage. It's absolutely petrifying. And when we listen to Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who we got to listen to them, and they are real monsters, by the way. They're not only racist, they are just monsters. I mean, really listen to them, but listen to them, I would argue, with, a glass of wine so you can more easily digest what they're saying. This is a direct quote. Sam Altman says, AI will probably lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies. He says, we have no idea how we may generate revenue with AI, but we're going to ask AI what to do with what it computes. Keep in mind, AI modeling already has proven that every AI model will blackmail its employers if the AI feels threatened. So we're going to ask AI when it knows that it will do this? Meanwhile, workers in Kenya who are exposed to AI, because they're the ones who actually, if you get any of the Meta glasses, they're the ones who see everything that you see in the glasses. They're the ones who have to go through everything on Facebook. One worker in Kenya said, and I quote, AI tears the veil of what makes us human. So big tech and big oil are recognizing the importance of stories because they are telling us that it is inevitable. So we must compromise and adjust. But we have our stories as well. And our stories are rooted in our history of resistance, rooted in our history of justice, and rooted in our love of land. Keep in mind, AI, big tech, wants to change our lives so that our only relationship is with the screen. But our relationships are with each other. We refuse to have our relationship is going to be through technology, through those screens. We refuse to go into Waymos, which are these driverless taxis. We want the human relationship. And public opinion is so clear in the United States. The public is saying no to these massive, dead, life-sucking buildings. The opposition to data centers across the country, including North Carolina, is the leading stance across age, gender, education, and income levels. From the ultra-right MAGAs to the ultra-left socialist, there is opposition to the data centers and to AI. It is what somebody told me a few days ago, an extraordinarily spontaneous uprising across this country. North Carolina is no different. Karen was one of the 66 organizers that joined us in early March for a statewide convening where we got together for 2 days and we decided together that we are going to organize for a ban on hyperscale data centers and crypto mining in North Carolina. We decided together that we want to bring the movements that are opposed to data centers and opposed to artificial intelligence and opposed to ICE together, that we marry these movements. And we decided also that we want to be influencing electoral policy in the midterms and in the next 2 years through candidate pledges. And in the time since, there's been so much. So North Carolina today has 52 current data centers, 23 proposed data centers, and in the past few months, 5 withdrawn proposals. including in the Durham Police Department that withdrew a partnership for predictive policing. We have, as of today, 4 towns, 3 cities, and 7 counties that have passed moratoriums against data centers, and several Democratic Party precincts have passed moratoriums against data centers. And we have 3 upcoming moratoria, one in Clyde, one in East Charlotte, and particularly of importance, one in the city of Durham for a 2-year moratorium. That's huge. And we're taking it further. We have had an electoral victory in Edgecombe County where one individual primaried a county commissioner who was pro data centers, and the individual primaried him and got 2.5 times the number of votes that the incumbent got and will win that seat in the county commission. We have a litigation victory where 1,800 acres was deemed to be zoned for a data center by the Stokes County Commission. And recently, the Stokes County voided that data center rezoning after a lawsuit. We finally have our governor speaking out and asking the Energy Task Force to consider the overhaul or elimination of North Carolina's data center tax break. And we have 3 North Carolina General Assembly bills that will be very soon introduced, co-sponsored, not only by Representative Pricey Harrison, our beautiful Democrat, but also by 3 ultra MAGA Republicans who are leading the co-sponsoring of 3 bills in the North Carolina General Assembly, one calling for transparency, one calling for a removal of the tax incentives, and one calling for a 2-year moratorium. So we're getting there. We still have a very long way to go. Let's make sure those bills pass through the Senate Rules Committee so they actually get voted on in the General Assembly. We also promised that we want to be doing candidate pledges for every individual running in city, county elections within North Carolina, for every individual running in the North Carolina General Assembly, and for every individual seeking to represent North Carolina in Congress. We want to ask them, do you support a data center moratorium? And do you promise not to take money from artificial intelligence lobbyists? We need your support so we can be doing all this. There are additional campaigns we could be doing. There's a Purge Palantir national campaign that we could be joining and supporting. We can also be working to divest our public pensions and our municipality bonds from big tech and from big oil. So there's so much that we can be doing. And of course, we can get Gray Pack to do endorsements on candidates, which would be wonderful. We see huge potential in working together across the state and across the country and internationally, because ultimately our goal is not to move these hyperscale data centers from one place to the next, but to stop them at the top of the river, to make sure that this monster does not get built. And instead, we see a potential for a political tsunami of transformation. We will not, like some big greens, operate on the path of least resistance. We operate on the path of justice. And as somebody told us recently at the Take Back Tech conference in Atlanta, we are more than a movement. We are a liberation process. And we believe in that fundamentally. So I want to open up the floor to hear from your questions, your comments, and hopefully together we can actually beat this monster and create a beautiful revolution in this country and not just in North Carolina.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Rania. Yeah, just take a minute to take this all in. It looked pretty dire there for a minute. But yeah, but the progress that's been made. I have a question, and I was there that first day of that strategy meeting. And one of the things that I took away from that was that North Carolina has no permitting for water usage.
Yes.
So is that something, is that something that people are working on, or yeah.
Well, what we need is to be able, we need the time to pass the permitting. We need the time to pass the guardrails. So that's why we're pushing for moratoriums. And we need the moratoriums to be at least a year, preferably 32 months. So from 12 months to 32 months to allow us to build those guardrails. What kind of water permitting do we want? Do we want to learn from Aurora, Colorado and build like a large water users regulation? What kind of air permitting do we want? We don't have cumulative impacts in North Carolina. So there's no assessment of cumulative impact. We know, though, given the General Assembly, it wouldn't pass. How could we pass something similar using different words? So it's not called cumulative impact and we call it something else. So how do we take advantage of moratoriums passed throughout the counties in North Carolina so we can get to the General Assembly so we can then pass those guardrails? How do we pass those guardrails on a city and county level in the meantime? And how do we make the guardrails in such a way that they become truly restrictive for data centers? In the meantime, we can look, while we're doing that, we can look at including community community ordinances, not community agreements, not CBAs, but CBOs. CBOs which are tied not between the community and the industry, but actually hold the politicians and elected officials responsible for the industry to do the work. So there's a number of different regulations and guardrails that we can pass, but we need the time to pass them. And that's why we're pushing for moratorias in the meantime.
Again, say what again the CBO is, community what?
I'm getting like a brain, I forgot what the B stands for. So let me, community B ordinances. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
It's community-based.
Um, let me check. Yes, thank you. Yeah, let me tell you exactly what they stand. Community benefit agreement. Thank you. It's
Okay,
community
benefit.
benefit. We don't want a community benefit agreement. We want a community benefit ordinance. That is
Okay.
the difference, because a community benefit agreement is between the community and the industry, which is what we have in Person County. And Microsoft is not even fulfilling the CBA. We need community benefit ordinances that are tied between the community and the elected officials and the government. They're the ones that then hold the industry responsible. But we do those CBOs only with data centers that are already here or data centers that are being built. For the other data centers, we want to make sure they don't come, so we build really restrictive guardrails for them.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
Marion Gamble has her hand up. Marion?
Yes. Rama, have you spoken at the state legislature? You
No.
could, you need, could you, would you? Because they need to hear from you.
I would love to, but it really depends on who I'm speaking to. So if I were to be speaking to Republicans, I would be talking more about fake porn impacting our children, more about elderly scams, and I would not talk about the military or ICE or surveillance because they love killing machines and they love kidnapping our neighbors. So there's issues that I would not be raising. The issue that is fundamental, though, for Republicans, and I would argue for Democrats, is the issue of tax incentives. But the catch then becomes how many of our legislators are free decision makers. So here I'm saying, are they free to make their decision or have they sold their decision to big oil and big tech? How many of them have Duke Energy as one of their main lobbyists? How many of them have Palantir or others as their main lobbyist? We know that many of them have very good relationships with Amazon, with others. So the question becomes, for those free thinkers, regardless of their political persuasion, we can get them on our side. For those who are already beholden to their lobbyist, we need to get them out of power. But the short answer, no, I have not yet spoken at the North Carolina General Assembly. I am, though, speaking to certain legislatures and trying to move them along. And the information is really very, very clear as to where people should stand.
Okay, thank you for what you're doing. It feels like as a monster that's been let out, and we need to contain it.
Yeah, we need to contain
We need
it.
to warn people. So, and I don't see how anybody. This is our humanity and our planet that's at
Yeah.
stake, and we need to warn people. But I guess you're right. Do it in the right way that they can hear it.
Yeah.
So,
But the
yeah.
main issue in North Carolina, by the way, the issue that really upsets people is the issue of water. The issue of energy isn't upsetting people as much as water, and it makes sense given where we are as a state and what we're dealing with. The issue of energy, of course, is upsetting people, but water's the number one issue. Energy is the number two issue, and we haven't even talked about the other harms that that will and have already impacted our lives.
Are there other questions or comments that people have?
There is one in the Q&A.
Okay, can you read it?
Yeah, Elizabeth Chartrand asks, so the current data centers now are enough for all the outrageous numbers that AI is responsible for? And why are more needed?
They're not needed. So here's the thing is we've got big tech and big oil together creating a market for this product. We do not need this product. Even our military, which is at a budget of $1 trillion, does not need more killing power. Our surveillance in this country is already so restrictive. We don't need it, but they are creating a market for it. And then you've got organizations like, oh, I am just losing all my numbers. I'm losing all the names. I'm so sorry. But you have many right-wing economists who are saying already in the United States, data centers and AI have provided zero GDP growth in the sense that they have not provided anything to the economy. And if you look at what big tech is saying, big tech thus far is not making money out of AI. So likely they will be depending on the military as their prime end user, which we're already seeing. It's the USDA making a contract with Palantir. It's the US military signing contracts. It's ICE signing contracts, which basically is the government that is already beholden to big oil and big tech, using our taxpayer money to power that. It is not us as consumers. So let us understand that. As much as people try to say, okay, don't use ChatGPT, and definitely don't use ChatGPT because we don't want to be contributing to it, but we are not the primary users of this generative technology. It's not us predominantly that is using it. It is predominantly surveillance, it is predominantly the military, and it is predominantly after that, porn. And porn is the number one user on the internet, by the way. And then get this latest statistic. The main users of the internet, both in terms of the consumers and the writers, are not even human. Already, AI is the main writer of content on the internet, and AI is the main reader of content on the internet. So we are draining our water supply to create a place for AI to talk to AI.
Hmm.
And I'm not making this stuff up. So
Wow.
it's in terms of money making, it's not going to be us that we will be paying for it with our taxes. In terms of a need, there is no need. They are creating a market. Even the term artificial intelligence was created in 1956 by a professor who made up the term to get federal funding. So it is a massive public relations scam. And unfortunately, too many people are accepting AI and just fighting data centers. But no, they're both horrendous.
Wow. I think we have time for one more question, and it looks like Nancy's got her hand up.
Yeah, Rania, I wonder if you could address what I've been reading is that AI is going to fail because they're just not making enough money. The expense of creating it is so much more than the revenue they're getting. And then also, could you address, I've also read that experts are saying that 50% of all data centers will never get built.
Yes.
So can you tell us about this bubble?
So the question is when will the AI bubble burst? Not if the AI bubble will burst. You're very right about the revenue. Currently, the main revenue for AI is the government's. And we know that the US government is one of the least efficient spenders of money, and the military is one of the least efficient spenders of money. So in that case, if we have big oil and big tech purchasing decision makers through the purchase of Congress, and then Congress, and it's not just the president, by the way, Congress, both the MAGA blues and the MAGA reds are also in love with data centers and AI. And then they will continue to give contracts to big tech, like in the military, like in surveillance. So they become the revenue. So in other words, we become the purchaser through our tax dollars. But you're very right about that. There's another challenge also, which is we don't have enough memory chips to power all the data centers. We don't have enough metal to power all the data centers and power our cars and our telecommunications. We just don't. So therefore, all that 50% data centers, I think the number is closer to 46% of the data centers have been delayed or canceled. Yes, it's very true. So then who's benefiting? Big oil. Because whether or not the data centers get built, the infrastructure for the data center would be built. This is what Duke Energy is arguing. And so the infrastructure for Duke Energy would be built, the fracking, the pipelines, the nuclear power plants, the postponement of coal retirement, all that will be built regardless of the data center and regardless of the end user. So the best case scenario there is that we will just have more fossil fuel and more pipelines to pollute more land and more lungs and more water. The worst case scenario is that we would end up with so many data centers and so much more powerful AI that it would transform our lives so horrendously. So we need to be opting for what some of the big greens call impractical, which I argue every liberation movement began as impractical and they succeeded, which is no, we want to say no to all of this. We want to say no to all of this. And ultimately, wouldn't it be great if Duke Energy is no longer a private monopoly, but actually becomes a public utility owned by the people for the people? So let's dream big and then plan the way to get there instead of being told to dream small and accept the crumbs and increased oppression. Now, I still dream of a socialist revolution, and I still dream of Eugene Debs, who tells us he wants to rise with the people and not from the people. And I still think we can make that dream a reality. So that's my
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great way. Thank you. To have just a little bit of, I guess, a teaser or something to get you interested in these campaigns that we have. And we always end most of our events, all of our events at Third Act with a call to action because we know that action is the antidote to despair. And we don't want anybody to leave here in despair. As we said at the beginning, Third Act was started by Bill McKibben, a longtime climate activist who founded Third Act in 2020 after he turned 60, because he realized that seniors have some superpowers that are needed for the movement. And some of the superpowers that Bill identified include the gift of time to devote to what matters to us. Even though we may move a little bit slower, we have the time. Built-in credibility because of our age and a network of contacts. We were also taught to write and have a sense of history that teaches us that the arc of the moral universe eventually will bend towards justice, and the patience to know that change can come if we keep working at it. And while we may not individually be wealthy, seniors in this country hold most of the nation's assets. And as Rosemarie said, we consistently turn out to vote in large numbers. So we're in a position to create a powerful movement to protect the climate and democracy. Those are some of our collective superpowers as elders, but each one of us also has our own personal superpower. Everyone here has a skill or some experience. The great thing about Third Act is that it does provide a lot of training so you can find what fits for you and be part of a community of like-minded people while working to make the world a better place. And then I want to just address this idea of resistance. Ronnie talked about it a little bit, but we often think about ourselves as the resistance to what's going on right now in this country. But Isabel Wilkerson wrote an article during Trump's first term titled, "We Are Not the Resistance." And in it, she proposed that there's a river of justice and humanity moving, trying to birth a new nation that really does encompass liberty and justice for all. And that all these things like racism, misogyny, militarism, greed, hatred, pollution, ecological devastation, all those policies that the current administration promotes and denies exist, that is actually the resistance to the natural flow of this river of humanity. So this river has been flowing for a long time and will keep on flowing even if they try to dam it up. And you can stand on the riverbank or swim in the river alone, or you can deal with that resistance better in the boat with other people. And on the river, there are a lot of different movement boats like immigrant rights and human rights, anti-war, clean energy, data centers, and AI, democracy that you can get in. And once we get in that boat, our job is not to be in competition with the other boats, but to cheer them on and help each other. And we can use some time to protest and call out injustice. But we need to focus most of our time on organizing for what we do want while we're in the boat. And while we do the work to create this change, we need to also be sure to sing and dance and celebrate together so more people will want to get in our boat. And we can pass on a legacy of justice with joy. Right now, we need everyone to be in a boat so we can create a fleet to help us be sure we have record voter turnout this fall and blow past the current resistance to climate justice, democracy, and just plain human dignity. Tonight, we're inviting you to get in our third act boat. We welcome you and want you to know that there are people who are here to help you get in if you need it. And if you're already in a boat, we're glad that you're here and already involved in the movement. We need all of us, all our superpowers to be part of this movement so that we can save our democracy and protect the climate, not only for us, but for future generations. As we close tonight, we ask you to complete our survey. This will help us get to know you better and give you an idea about where you might fit with Third Act. You can find the survey on the screen by using the QR code, or there's a link in the chat. And we'll also be sending the survey out to everyone in the next day or so you can complete it later. And so our time really went kind of quick tonight, but we just want to thank everybody for coming. And Karen's going to crank up a little music if you want to dance together. And yeah. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thanks everybody for sharing, showing up. Thanks,
Yeah.
Rania.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everybody for being here, sharing with us. Thank you, Rania. Still on?
Rania, you're a hero.
Yeah.
Hero.
I think she might have got off, but
Come join us.